Joining us now, Virginia Congressman Eugene Vindman. Thank you so much for being here. You served in Iraq. So what do you think when you hear this statement from Pete Hegseth about whether the U.S. will put boots on the ground?
I think it's outrageous. Yesterday, or on Saturday, I was at the Dignified transfer ceremony for 6 Americans killed in this conflict in the first day. And I watched the coffins go by with the secretary, the president, the vice president, the architects of this conflict right in front of me. And the thought that kept going through my head is, where does this end? How many more Americans will die? How much more treasure, we're spending about $1 billion a day, will be expended on a conflict that we have no idea what the objectives are. One day it's unconditional surrender. Another day it is destruction of the Iranian nuclear capability, which supposedly last year was destroyed in the strikes committed in the middle of the year. And so there is really no plan here. And it's run by a cartoonish figure, a meme Secretary of Defense that has really no idea what he's doing. And that's what really bothers me the most.
I want to ask you about something you just mentioned, which is the cost of the war. The Center for Strategic and International Studies calculated the cost of this war to be about $890 million a day that the U.S. is spending. Cost was a major point of contention for President Trump when it came to helping Ukraine. So do you have an answer as to why the president is fine spending this kind of money on this particular war?
Well, look, it comes down to, again, poor judgment, poor leadership, poor strategic planning. There was a report in the Times today that talked about U.S. officials thinking that this is going to be a much shorter term conflict. In fact, I think the verbiage was they did not expect a sustained, robust response by the Iranians, where obviously they've dug in with the selection of their new leader, and they expected some sort of Venezuela-like operation. All of the assumptions going into this were wrong. And when you have a poor plan, there's an old adage that says a tactics without strategy is sure to lead to defeat. And that's what we're laser focused on in the Congress, making sure we have accountability, have a sense of what this administration is looking to achieve before throwing more American lives and treasure at objectives that are just not achievable.
I do want to ask you about the new supreme leader. Iran has a new supreme leader, the son of Ali Khamenei. Mojtaba Khamenei is now at the helm. President Trump weighed in saying he's an unacceptable choice. And if he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long. Israel has promised to kill anyone taking up the helm of the supreme leader in an attempt to force regime change. No matter how awful Iran's leadership actually is, what does give the U.S. and Israel the right to dictate who leads another sovereign nation?
Well, this is really the point that's critical here, is that Iran is a sovereign country. They get to choose their leadership. We're involved in a war now, and so we can target leadership, although it really hasn't been, ultimately wars end in negotiation. Very rarely do they end in unconditional surrender. And we need to have somebody to negotiate with. And apparently this new leader is even more hardline than his father. And the Iranians are digging in. They're a sovereign country. They get a vote. The enemy gets a vote. And, we're here 3 minutes away from the opening of a market. Oil prices are skyrocketing. The cost to the American people in both blood and treasure is going to increase without the president and the senior leaders in this administration having a clear exit strategy.
I just want to lastly ask you, because you had to stand there through watching this transfer of someone's children who have been killed in this attack, American soldiers. Do you know anything about the 7th soldier who has died?
Look, I can tell you that the 6 service members that were killed are great Americans. There were mothers, fathers, brothers. There was an identical twin that was his twin brother was at the transfer on Saturday, and I feel that since my own twin was wounded in the Iraq War, and there were young children there. There's a real human cost to the lives lost here. The reason I was there is there was a constituent from Spotsylvania County, and so we're going to learn very shortly who the seventh person is, and there'll be another dignified transfer ceremony. And I just want to know when this will end. What is the strategy to achieve achievable objectives? And that's what we're waiting for from the administration. And until that point, this mission will not have my support.